This day in sports history. It's June 15th. Happy Father's Day to all the dads. And since 1976, the final round of the U.S. Open has been played, and barring a tie at the end of today's 72, play at Oakmont will conclude the season's third major golf tournament. Well, on this day in 2008, it was tied at the completion of 4 rounds due to another in the long line of dramatic finishes by Tiger Woods. The U.S. Open was at Torrey Pines in San Diego in 2008. Rocco Mediate had already played his 72 holes and was in the clubhouse with a one-shot lead as Tiger hobbled to the par 5 18th. He needed a birdie to tie and force an 18-hole playoff the following day. Now, Tiger had played the entire tournament in pain, walking around on an injured knee. But here he was in the final pairing with Lee Westwood with a chance. Tiger didn't really do himself any favors, though, hitting his tee shot in a fairway bunker. Then he hit his second shot in the rough, leaving a 110-yard shot to the pin.
Makes a mighty lash at it at the bottom. Can you get lucky and get the right distance? Look at this, going to funnel down that hill. That's a pretty darn good shot.
That pretty darn good shot left him with a 12-foot birdie putt, but it was not really where he wanted to be. He said it was the worst part of the green. It was bumpy down there. He watched as Lee Westwood made his putt attempt to join the playoff, but his putt came up just a little bit short. Woods told himself to commit to the putt. It was 2.5 balls outside right, and he just had to hit it.
Expect anything different?
Nope. Everybody on the planet would have been more surprised if he'd missed it. It was classic Tiger. But now he had an 18-hole playoff the following day, and nobody really knew what to expect. Would Mediate fold? Could Tiger handle another 18 holes on his injured knee? Well, the answers would be no, Mediate would not fold, and yes, Tiger could make it. The two were still all square after the Monday 18-hole playoff and then played sudden death, with Tiger winning on the 19th playoff hole. It was later revealed that Tiger had played the entire tournament on a torn ACL. Now, this was the last tournament he played in 2008 and turned out to be his last major win until his surprising Masters win in 2019. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. On this day in 1988, the great baseball movie Bull Durham was released in theaters, and did you know that both Kevin Costner's character Crash Davis and Tim Robbins' character Nuke LaLoosh were based on actual real-life ball players? Yeah, so while Costner's Crash character was a catcher who never made it to the show, the real Crash Davis was Lawrence Crash Davis, an infielder who played 3 years with the Philadelphia Athletics. His time in the majors was cut short, though, by World War II, and he joined the military. When Davis returned to the States after 3 years overseas, his job with the A's was not there, so he went back to the minors, and he ended up playing with the Durham Bulls for a couple of seasons, having his best year in 1948 when he hit .317 with 10 home runs. He never did make it back to the major leagues, and he retired in 1952. Now, the director of Bull Durham, Ron Shelton, came across the name in an old Carolina League program, and he wanted to use it for the film. And he asked Mr. Davis for the rights to use it, and Crash had just one question. Do I get the girl in the end? To which Shelton responded, yes, sir, you do. Davis was all in at that point and even toured around the country giving talks after the film was released. Now, Calvin Nuke LaLoosh was based on a career minor league pitcher named Steve Dalkowski. Every manager he ever had always claimed he was the hardest throwing pitcher they had ever seen. Gene Mauch said he threw faster fastballs than Nolan Ryan or Roger Clemens. Earl Weaver coached him in the Orioles minor league system, and he said he threw way faster than Ryan. There was no way to prove it, though. Dowkowski pitched back in the 1950s, and they did not have radar gun technology at the ballpark yet. When he pitched in the minors at Aberdeen, South Dakota, though, a couple of coaches talked the local Army base into letting Dowkowski swing by and throw some at their radar. He was clocked at 98.6, but there were some X factors with this test. He'd pitched the night before and threw upwards of 150 pitches in that game. He was also wild, more on that in a second, but so wild during this test that he needed to throw pitches for an hour before the radar gun could even read one. He was also throwing on flat ground as opposed to on a pitcher's mound. So 98.6 with all of that leans toward a yes, he could throw harder than all the greats. And side note, thanks to Vince Staten's terrific book, Why is the Foul Pole Fair, for that tidbit. So, why have you never heard of this guy? Well, just like Nuke LaLoosh, he had control problems. If you remember the scene when Nuke hits the Bulls mascot, well, once Dowkowski hit a guy waiting in line for a hot dog. While pitching in Tennessee for Class D Kingsport, he struck out 121 batters in just 62 innings of work. Not bad. But he also walked 129, finished 1-8 on the season with an ERA of 8.13. He pitched 9 years in the minor leagues with 1,396 Ks and 1,354 base on balls. On this day in 1976, a game in the Houston Astrodome was rained out. Now, let me just let that one sink in for you. The Astrodome had a rainout. Okay, so there is actually a reasonable explanation for this one, and no, it was not a leaky roof. Instead, the Houston area was deluged with rain. Estimates of between 7 to 10 inches throughout the day flooded the area around the Astrodome, including the parking areas and the entrance ramps into the park. The field was dry, but nobody could get in. Could they have played the game? Probably. The Astros players and the Pittsburgh Pirates were both inside already. The umpires weren't there yet, but they could have figured something out to get them inside. But the Astros knew if they played the game, then fans would attempt to come to the park, and that could put them in danger. So instead, it went down in the book as postponed due to rain. The concessions folks who had made it to the park set up a buffet table at second base, and the teams ate dinner together on the field. There were even a few fans who managed to canoe to the dome who were allowed in to have dinner with the players as well. On this day in 1938, Johnny Vander Meer did something no pitcher had done before, and it's not been duplicated since. Vander Meer's Cincinnati Reds were in Brooklyn playing the Dodgers at Ebbets Field. It was a historic day because this was the first night game ever played at Ebbets Field. But it was about to become historic for a completely different reason. Vander Meer had pitched 4 days earlier against the Boston Bees. A quick side note, the Braves were actually the Bees for a 5-year stint beginning in 1936 and ending in 1941. They were the Braves, rebranded the Bees in 36, and then back to Braves with a color change to their now familiar blue and red in 41. Okay, so in that game with the Bees, on the 11th, Vander Meer pitched 9 innings, striking out 4, walking 3, but he did not allow a hit. On this night in 38, the 22-year-old Vander Meer had some issues with his control. He ended up walking 8 on the night, including 2 in the 7th inning. He was able to pitch around that minefield and induce ground ball outs to get out of the inning. In the 9th, more trouble finding the strike zone led to him walking the bases loaded with 1 out. The next Dodger grounded into a force at the plate, and then Leo DeRocher popped up to end the ballgame for Vander Meer's second straight no-hitter. He struck out 7 on his way to baseball immortality. His feat has never been duplicated. 2 came close. In 1947, Cincinnati's Ewell Blackwell pitched 8 1/3 innings of no-hit ball, interestingly enough, against the Brooklyn Dodgers after throwing a no-hitter in his previous start. Eddie Stanky broke it up in the 9th. And in 1973, Nolan Ryan, pitching for the California Angels, then took a no-no into the 8th against Baltimore after throwing a no-hitter in his previous start. Mark Belanger broke up Ryan's attempt to equal Vander Meer. On this day in 2004, It was an upset that led to a dismantling of a once powerhouse team. The Detroit Pistons beat the Los Angeles Lakers in Game 5 of the NBA Finals to win their first championship since the Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Vinnie Johnson days of 1990. The final was 100-87, and Chauncey Billups became the first MVP of a championship series that had not been an All-Star that season since 1989, when Joe Dumars pulled off that feat. But the story was really about the Lakers, who had been heavy favorites to win their 13th NBA title. This was a dysfunctional family. Phil Jackson left and later wrote in his book The Last Season that Kobe was simply uncoachable. Shaq was traded to Miami. Rick Fox and Gary Payton were shipped off to Boston. Derek Fisher left. Karl Malone had joined this team in the hopes of finally winning a championship, and he was willing to stick around another year until Kobe accused him of making inappropriate comments towards his wife. He retired in December, saying, "This is a Hollywood soap opera, and I'm not going to be a star in another Kobe Bryant soap opera." It would be another 4 years before the Lakers would return to the finals, and 5 before they would win it again. And along with Bull Durham, there were a few other summer blockbuster movies with sports tie-ins released on this day in different years. In 1967, The Dirty Dozen was released in theaters. Cleveland Browns running back and actor Jim Brown played a role in the World War II-era film about a group of convicts attacking a French chateau filled with Nazi officers. Brown had been in Europe shooting the movie, but filming ran long and Brown was needed back in Cleveland to get ready for the upcoming season. Jim said he would return when shooting was done on the movie. When Brown's owner, Art Modell, told Brown he would be fined $1,000 for every day he missed in training camp, Jim told Art to stuff it and retired from the NFL instead at the age of 30. Also, Rocky II debuted in theaters on this day in 1979. It ended up grossing $200 million and was named Best Picture at the American Movie Awards. Time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. If you are of the mind that graffiti is a modern thing, then you should rethink that. The ancient Romans were quite the graffiti artists, carving insults and jokes and stick figures doing naughty things into plaster surfaces around the empire. Archaeologists found many examples when they uncovered the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum. And once again, happy Father's Day. Enjoy the rest of it, and be sure to come back tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.